In 1941, one of the worst maritime disasters in history occurred, with a death toll far greater than more famous disasters like the Titanic, which leaves me surprised that this isn't among those more widely known disasters. When this ship sank, possibly 7,000 people went with it, but this story has been almost completely forgotten. So today I'm telling you the story of the Soviet hospital ship Armenia and the horrific disaster that befell her and those she was carrying on November 7th, 1941. The Armenia was built in 1928 at the Baltic shipyards in modern-day St. Petersburg. She was part of a fleet of liners designed for use in the Black Sea. This transport ship was among the very first passenger liners to be built for the Soviet Union, which only formed 6 years earlier. She was a transport and passenger liner, and then later on a hospital ship, all in one. She weighed 4,727 gross registered tons, she was 367 feet long, her beam was 51 feet, and she was propelled by twin shafts that could plow her ahead at a speed of 13 knots. Armenia was designed to carry 1,000 tons of cargo, along with roughly 550 passengers within her first, second, and third class accommodations. Passengers could enjoy luxury and many activities. And due to a shallow water draft as well, she could get through shallow water ports that would be hazardous to other ships, such as those in the Crimean Peninsula. Throughout the first decade of her career, the 5 sister ships in the fleet were reliable vessels for passenger service, as well as for carrying mail and cargo between the various ports throughout the Black Sea. Then World War II started. The Armenia and her sisters were not immediately requisitioned by the Soviet Union. That didn't happen until Germany invaded the Soviet Union in 1941. This is when she was turned into a hospital and troop transport ship. The German army had cut off the Crimean Peninsula, and the only way out for the Soviets was by sea. Armenia was repainted with red crosses that told everyone she was a hospital ship, and her task was removing wounded Soviet soldiers from the front line, along with medical personnel and civilians, and taking them to a safe location. This was the duty she carried out for less than 5 months. On the nights of November 6th and 7th, 1941, the Armenia took on thousands of passengers, placing their trust in the ship and her crew. They were going to be escaping from Sevastopol as the city fell into chaos. While the city would indeed prove strong enough to withstand the German siege for 9 months, at this time it seemed like the city would fall any day and many were trying to escape. Armenia took entire Soviet hospital staffs on, and civilian officials and their families, along with thousands of additional wounded soldiers. They were bound for Tuapse, a town 250 miles away along the northeastern coast of the Black Sea. Having taken on her passengers far more than she was ever designed to carry, and as they settled in within her accommodations, the crowded Armenia left port in the early hours of November 7th. Almost immediately, her captain received orders to pick up even more passengers in Yalta. They did so, and thousands more wounded soldiers and refugee civilians were taken on board. No exact counts were kept here, but it was thousands of additional people, bringing her passenger total somewhere between 5,000 and 7,000 people. Remember, she was only designed to carry 550 passengers. At 7 a.m., the ship finally left, with her captain eager to get underway with some darkness still providing cover for the overloaded vessel. However, they were delayed from leaving earlier by additional orders that they had to wait for an escort, which finally arrived and consisted of only 2 armed boats and 2 fighter planes. The reason for such light security might have been that, in the Black Sea, the Germans and other Axis powers only had limited number of surface vessels. The Soviets never lost full control of the sea throughout the war. However, despite having the sea itself under their control, the Axis powers did control the skies above the sea. And it was so bad that only the most heavily armed and heavily escorted ships could even have a hope or a prayer to make it across the sea afloat. Armenia did not have that. She had 2 armed boats and 2 planes to protect her. Ships caught in the western part of the sea alone or with a light escort were almost guaranteed to be sunk, or at the very least attacked and forced to limp to shore. If you look at the map on screen, the ship did not make it far from Yalta. You can see how far she was from her destination when it all went wrong. At 11:30, only 25 miles from Yalta, the worst came to pass. Armenia and her escort were spotted. A group of German bombers flew overhead, and Armenia's crew and their escort most definitely realized what was coming for them. They had very light anti-aircraft abilities, and her Red Crosses presented a bullseye target for the bombers. The bombers dove and attacked. They fought their way through the two escort planes, and one of them dropped 2 torpedoes at the hospital ship. One torpedo missed. The other scored a direct hit on the Armenia. Her back was broken by the blow. Witnesses said she split in half and sank in 4 minutes. And of the between 5,000 to 7,000 people on board, there were only 8 survivors, and they were picked up by the escort vessels, who could only watch as the ship they were supposed to protect sank quickly right next to them, gone in what had to have been the blink of an eye. The lowest, most conservative, most lenient estimate for the dead, 5,000 people. In those short 4 minutes, at least 5,000 people died. Even with that number in mind, to this day, this remains one of the deadliest maritime disasters ever, and the deadliest sinking of a single ship in Russian and Soviet Union history. It is consistently listed within the top 3 to 5 worst single ship maritime disasters in history. And Armenia was not alone in being lost. All 4 of her sister ships shared her fate throughout the war. But that was not the end of the story. The wreck of this little remembered ship proved to be of interest to many historians and shipwreck enthusiasts, and many set out to look for her, but she proved to be very elusive to find. The Australian company Geo Renaissance claimed that using an undisclosed remote sensing technique that they located her in 2005 at 250 meters below the surface, but if this is true is unknown. However, in 2020, the Russian Geographical Society also claimed to have located the wreck of the Armenia. At first, they were not sure what they had seen on sonar looked like the ship, but they couldn't identify it from just that. In April 2020, however, it was confirmed that the wreck was in fact the Armenia when they sent ROVs down to investigate it, and they located many unique characteristics of the vessel, as well as one of her bells, which clearly still showed her name standing at the stern of the ship. How many bombs struck the ship could not be officially determined. Many accounts, however, to this day claim it was just one. The wreck is also, despite what was said by witnesses, to be in one piece. But she did in fact sink very quickly, due to the fact that multiple windows are smashed inward all across the wreck, indicating there were still large amounts of air inside the ship after she was already underwater. After nearly a century, we now know for sure where she is, and where thousands of people now rest. Hopefully, with future dives, final mysteries of this shipwreck will be solved in a way that is respectful and does not disturb the wreck. At this time, no additional dives to the gravesite are planned. Today, her wreck remains the remnant of one of the most forgotten, but horrific and deadly maritime disasters in all of history. One of many overshadowed by the conflict they were lost in.